Thank you. My name is Renske from Enschot from Tilburg University, and I have been teaching a course on interactive storytelling for some years now, taking forward your work here in the field of interactive digital narratives. And I also want to be joining you on your journey here, so I started also studying interactive digital narratives and did that together with Boogaard, who did her master's thesis about this project. And I was also lucky to be in cooperation with Hartmut and Christian. And I will be recording our experiment using Last Hijack Interactive. Okay, so let me take you to Somalia, which is a country maybe best known for their pirates hijacking international ships, crossing their waters, asking for large ransom payments. But yeah, describing it as such makes it seem far more straightforward than it actually is. This issue of piracy in Somalia is in fact a highly complex one. All kinds of personal, economical, political, judicial factors need to be taken into account, and you need to be aware of all the different perspectives involved here. So not just taking into account the perspective of the hijacked captain of a ship, for instance, but also of the hijackers themselves, who also have their story to tell there. So, and this is where interactive digital narratives come in, really. So, as opposed to the linear narratives, interactive digital narratives allow designers to represent all the information in an all-encompassing branching structure, which interactors can explore based on their own preferences, to their own liking, at their own pace, in the order they like, etc., etc. And so the question we were interested in is to what extent interactive digital narratives can represent and facilitate comprehension of complex situations such as the Somali piracy situation. And an example of such an interactive digital narrative is Last Hijack. It won an Emmy Award. It's an interactive documentary made by the Submarine Channel, indeed. And it focuses specifically on the hijacking of a Western ship in the Arabian Sea in 2008. And the online interface of the Last Hijack gives the users the agency to view the hijack event from all kinds of different perspectives. So not just the captain of a hijacked ship, but also the hijackers, ex-pirates, the wife of the captain, a lawyer involved, a security expert, so all kinds of different perspectives can be explored here. And you can also look for additional information, for example, data visualizations, interactive ones, giving you more information on Somali piracy in general. So lots of things to explore in this interactive documentary. So our research question, this is it. Our research question here is to what extent agency and multiple perspectives in an interactive digital narrative influence comprehension of a complex situation. So let me explore with you these variables, so comprehension, agency, and multiple perspectives. And we did this through an experiment, as I said before, comparing this interactive documentary with a video edited version, removing the interactivity to allow for a clean comparison there. Okay, so first look at comprehension. So mental models come into play here. So, and Christian already discussed it in his workshop, very important when you look at comprehension. So mental models being cognitive structures that represent in our head some kind of aspect of the external real world or the imaginary world. And we can say that we comprehend a situation when we have been able to construct a coherent and correct mental model of this situation. So this is what we were using as a starting point to investigate comprehension. And a very relevant model here is this model by Boogaard and Belancic. It's in fact researchers involved in traditional storytelling, but also very relevant here. And this model includes comprehension, as you see on the left side. And by this they mean constructing meaning from narratives. We use their scale to measure comprehension in our study. And Boogaard and Boogaard's model explicitly refers to mental models, as discussed on the previous slide, subdivided into situation models, story world models, and character models, very relevant when you want to explore multiple perspectives. Okay, so let's have a look at these three different subtypes of mental models. So first, situation model. This is in fact the primary mental model related to narrative comprehension. It's kind of a mental micro world of what a narrative is about. And so, for example, applying this to the last hijack, you have the specific hijack in 2008, you have the subsequent events evolving on a storyline, and the actions of the hijacker, the captain, the negotiator, etc., etc. And we also have the story world model, which is less relevant for our study, which is about the setting of the story really. And more important, we also have the character model, representing identities, traits, motivations, and goals of individual characters. And important is that it starts off with stereotypical knowledge of the characters, for instance, the hijacker, and then it develops throughout when information comes in, for example, when you explore Last Hijack. Okay, so when we look at multiple perspectives, here we have the main characters of Last Hijack, which are the captain of the hijacked ship and the hijacker / pirate who was involved in this particular hijack. And when you apply the character model thing here, you can look at the hijacker. So we all have kind of stereotypical knowledge of a hijacker, so someone who is the bad guy, really, hijacking ships for financial gain. But it can be possible when you explore new information, for example in this interactive documentary, that you develop your character model of this hijacker, and your view of this pirate, this hijacker, becomes more nuanced. You get a better, more nuanced understanding of what he actually deals with and what his motivations are, for instance. And that is particularly relevant here. So what interactive digital narratives do, like Last Hijack, is that they have the affordance to invite interactors to experience the view of characters dissimilar to them. So I guess most of you are not similar to a hijacker, but exploring Last Hijack allows you to engage with this hijacker and get to an understanding of what his motivations are in this respect. And that's exactly what the creative team of Last Hijack had in mind. So they said most media stories and news stories reported on Western ships being hijacked and the experience of the passengers made us curious to know more about the pirates themselves. When we started to look into it, we quickly became fascinated by how the pirates were perceived within their own communities. We wanted to view the world through the eyes of the pirates. We could visualize their subjective reality, their dreams, from their memories of the Civil War to the hijacks they had undertaken, to really get to a better understanding of the hijackers. And then referring back to mental models and the Boogaard and Boogaard's model, we expect that an interactive digital narrative, such as Last Hijack, can enrich and nuance the interactor's understanding, moving away from the stereotypical view on a hijacker, for instance. And this led to our hypothesis that multiple perspectives, including the hijacker and the captain, lead to better comprehension of a complex situation than just a single perspective. And we also focused on the difference between the captain and the hijacker, which is particularly relevant here as well. Okay, and then let's also discuss the elephant in the room when we talk about interactive digital narratives: agency, of course. And we use the famous definition by Janet Murray, so the satisfying power to take meaningful action and see the result of your decisions and choices. So there is lots of agency in Last Hijack, and what we focused on is the agency to choose between the different perspectives. So you have different chapters on this timeline, and you can choose between the side characters, like a lawyer, for instance, but also the main character being the captain or the hijacker. And this was what we were particularly interested in. And when you want to connect agency to comprehension, learning theories can come into play. So Ryan House yesterday also already mentioned the constructivist theory of narration, which is also relatable here. And when you look, for example, at studies comparing active learning to passive learning, you see that the results, the exam results, for instance, when students engage in active learning methods are better than when they engage in passive learning methods. So this allows learners and also interactors to actively build their own representation of what's happening here. It's Somali piracy, controlling your own pace of learning, etc. And this fed our second hypothesis, is that having the agency to influence a narrative leads to a better comprehension of a complex situation than having no agency to influence a narrative. Okay, so we did an experiment between subjects design. We had, thank you. Yeah. So we had agency divided into extended agency, limited agency, and no agency. And we had perspectives comparing multiple perspectives and a single perspective divided into the perspective of the captain and of the hijack. Very important here because one is similar to you and the other is dissimilar to you. So we wanted to investigate that as well. And we came up with 5 different conditions. And so we built these conditions partially based on instructing the participants to either freely explore the different perspectives, so really here's your interface, be our guest, or we instructed them to focus on the perspectives of just the captain and the hijacker, evoking a limited agency condition. And the US also did some video editing, getting rid of the interactivity in the documentary, enabling this clean comparison of interactivity versus traditional linear narratives, creating the bottom 3 narratives. So they had first the captain's perspective, and then the hijacker's perspective in condition C, and then they had just the captain's perspective and just the hijacker's perspective. And our experiment was done amongst 96 participants, students at our university. Okay, so we focused on comprehension, understanding of a complex situation, and we did that in 2 ways. By perceived understanding, it's all in our paper, just going to give you an indication of how we measured this, focusing on the situation model as well as the character model here. So we used the Buscetta and Branchis model here. So my understanding of this character in the story ended up in this situation is clear, for instance. And we added another way of measuring understanding by adding a knowledge test. So we had a multiple choice question and an open question, so allowing us to have a rich understanding of how people understood the situation. We also wanted to include Christian's UX evaluation framework, so we added questions about mnemonic appraisal, character believability, enjoyment, curiosity, etc. And this turned out to be particularly interesting. We also had this open question listing the characteristics of the captain and the hijacker. Okay. So, and this is an important note because you sometimes think something will work out fine, and then you look at the results and they turn out to be a little bit different. So what we found out that our participants were a little bit stubborn at some point. So when we asked them to just look at the captain's and the hijacker's perspective, they thought, well, no, we're going to explore it all. So they behaved like having extended agency, and we found out because we also had screen recordings and we saw what they did. So we needed to solve this, and we did this by referring these participants to the extended agency condition, but it left us with very few participants in the limited agency condition. So we had to decide, well, that's how it goes, to take these 2 together in the analysis. Okay, so the results. So first for agency, so we had agency versus no agency, and everything I tried to clarify it using these letters. So when you have similar letters in a row, it means that there's no significant difference, and when there are different letters, so B and A, then it's a difference. So when you look here, and also orange is not significant, green is significant, to clarify it. So not much going on here, really, as you can tell. So no difference, really. Some pattern might be telling us somewhat, but it was not statistically different, and the only marginally significant difference was on character believability. So we couldn't do much with that. Okay. So this one was the only one that did something. Yes, thank you. So moving on to perspectives. So we looked at these three conditions to have this clean comparison. And here we see more things going on, but not really as expected. So it was not the case that multiple perspectives did better than a single perspective, but what we found is that the hijacker's perspective scored lower in many respects as opposed to the captain and the multiple perspectives. So the hijacker didn't do that good of a job here in this documentary. That's what we learned. So we see many differences in understanding, being better at multiple perspectives plus captain's perspective as opposed to the hijacker's perspective, for instance. So that was interesting, but not as expected. So, and then the qualitative results, which give us some insight here. So the captain was described by the participants as empathetic, someone who's able to see the bigger picture, who can reflect on why this has happened to him, and who changes his view on piracy, for instance. Okay, so he's a good guy, and they got to know him, and he also feels sympathy for the hijacker even. And then we get to look at the hijacker. So remember what the creative team wanted to get a better understanding of the hijacker. He focused on materialistic and short-term goals like money, cars, and women to be gained through piracy. He's a jerk who doesn't show remorse. Okay, so something going on there in the material, really. So, okay, coming to the conclusion, we have these two hypotheses, both rejected, but we learned something nonetheless. So agency didn't do anything. Doesn't mean that agency couldn't do anything, we think. So it might be the case that there was some cognitive overload, hampering learning or comprehension. So we want to factor in savviness with interactive forums. So I know most of you have a gaming background, so you're very familiar, you can easily explore such a surrounding. I'm just a humanities person, so I have to get to know and learn this surrounding. So for me it's different. So a factor like savviness with interactive forums or something like that is useful to include. And maybe also something like scripting the interactor. So giving them some instructions on how to explore the interface might also be helpful. Okay, and of course, regarding the stubbornness of our participants, so we would like to edit all the different versions instead of just instructing them to do this, which they can easily ignore. And also have a larger sample size, which also allowed us to relate Christian's evaluation framework in a better way than just having a list of all these different variables here. Okay, and then with respect to perspectives, so it's not so much multiple versus single perspective, but it's an effect of captain versus hijacker. That's what we see here. So multiple perspective, higher on understanding than the hijacker's perspective, equally high as the captain's single perspective. Captain, more enjoyable, more curiosity and suspense than the hijacker. And the qualitative results showed that the captain was more sympathetic than the hijacker. So, despite the efforts of the creative team, or their wishes in their documentary, hijacker's storyline remained underdeveloped, remained, you could say, a flat character. And this was also confirmed by Mirka Duin, who was the directive designer of this documentary. And she said that all this material was already shot before they decided to make an interactive version of this documentary, and she just had to work with what she got. And the material was a little bit poor. So this was it really. Yeah, thank you. So goes to say that your building blocks need to be in place. So you need to have these rich characters in an interactive narrative, allowing for it to gain better comprehension and even the transformative experience that Christian has in his evaluation framework. Okay, future research is something I would like to discuss with you because I have all kinds of ideas of how to combine the traditional storytelling work on narrative persuasion, transportation theory to this field of interactive digital narratives. But I'm going to leave that. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Iris, who was the master's thesis here. Master thesis student here, she did all the job, so all the work, and without her we wouldn't be standing here. So I would have loved to have her, but now she's at home celebrating her birthday today. So thank you, and looking forward to your questions.